Before we begin this chilling true tale from the Old West, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps a lot and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Out in the dry, lonely stretches of New Mexico, there was a black rancher named Elijah McCoy. A man of few words, but of many scars, both inside and out. People whispered that Elijah had seen too much war, too much betrayal, and far too much death. He built his ranch from nothing but broken dreams and calloused hands, keeping to himself, far from the judging eyes of town. His only companion? His wife, Marybelle, a strong woman with a gentle soul, whose laughter once filled the prairie air like music. One stormy afternoon, as dark clouds began rolling over the dusty horizon, Elijah rode his wagon down into the small nearby town. He needed supplies. Nothing out of the ordinary. But as he tied up his horse near the general store, a man in black approached him. Pale, thin, with eyes like chipped ice. He offered Elijah a handcrafted wooden coffin. Made with respect, the man said, and built for someone special. Elijah stared, confused. Why would I need that? The man didn't answer. He just left the coffin beside the wagon and disappeared into the crowd like smoke in the wind. Elijah didn't know what to do. He hadn't ordered no coffin, but something about the craftsmanship, elegant, detailed carvings, even Marybelle's favorite wildflowers etched into the lid, shook him. Against his better judgment, he loaded the coffin into his wagon and took it home. He figured maybe someone had confused the delivery. Or worse, someone was playing games. But he couldn't shake the feeling that the man knew exactly who he was. And what he feared most. When Elijah returned to the ranch, Marybelle stood on the porch, wiping her hands on her apron, confused by the large box. "What's this?" she asked. He couldn't lie. He told her the truth. A stranger gave it to him. "That ain't funny, Elijah," she whispered, stepping closer. As she touched the lid, she gasped. Her hand trembled. The wood was cold as death. They tried to push it out of sight, storing it in the old barn, covering it with tarps. But from that night on, something changed in the air around their home. The wind began howling louder through the windows. Coyotes cried longer into the night. And Marybelle, once full of laughter, became quiet. She'd sit by the fire, staring into the flames, murmuring about shadows moving near the barn. Elijah checked every night with his rifle in hand. But there was never anyone there. Only the coffin, untouched, but always colder than it should be. Sometimes it even seemed to hum, as if it was calling. Then came the nightmares. Elijah would wake up drenched in sweat, clutching Marybelle, who was tossing and turning, whispering names neither of them recognized. The dreams always ended the same way, the lid of the coffin slowly creaking open, and something dark crawling out. Elijah tried to burn it. He took it out to the fire pit and threw kerosene over it. Lit a match. But the flames danced around it like it was immune. It didn't even scorch. The wood stayed clean and untouched, like it had never known heat. Desperate, he went back to town, searching for the man in black. But no one had seen him. Not the storekeeper. Not the sheriff. Not even the undertaker. "You say someone gave you a coffin?" the sheriff asked, confused. "No funerals scheduled out here. You sure you ain't imagining things?" Elijah knew what he saw. But now he began to question himself. Until he noticed something strange on the bottom of the coffin. A name, carved faintly. Marybelle McCoy. Elijah froze. That name wasn't there before. He was sure of it. His heart thundered in his chest. He stormed back into the house and demanded to know if Marybelle had been hiding something. She just looked at him with tired eyes. "I've been feeling off," she admitted. "Like something's watching me. Waiting. I didn't want to scare you." He held her tight, promising nothing would happen to her. But deep down, Elijah feared he was already too late. The very next morning, Maribel collapsed while hanging laundry. No warning. No illness. She just fell. Elijah ran to her, scooping her in his arms, shouting her name, but she was unconscious. The doctor came. Said her heartbeat was slow. Almost fading. And he couldn't explain why. It's like she's being pulled away, the doctor said, puzzled. Elijah's mind raced back to the coffin. And suddenly he realized, whatever that box was, it wasn't just for burying the dead. It was calling death itself. That night, Elijah sat alone beside the coffin, rifle in hand, eyes wide open. He spoke out loud to the air, challenging whatever force had sent that cursed box. "You want her," he growled. "You'll have to come through me." Thunder cracked above. The barn doors slammed open by themselves. Cold wind surged through the space. And then a whisper echoed through the walls. She was promised. Elijah stood his ground. But he knew, this was no ordinary haunting. This was a warning, and a countdown. That night, Elijah sat by the fireplace, the dim glow casting long shadows on the wooden walls of his modest ranch house. He stared at the coffin in silence, the polished wood gleaming in a way that felt too pristine, too intentional. A sense of dread wrapped around him like a cold wind slipping through the cracks in the wall. His wife, Clara, had gone to visit her sister in the next town over, but something about the timing gnawed at his soul. Why would a man come offering a coffin the very day Clara left? It couldn't be a coincidence. He replayed the stranger's words in his mind. "You'll need this soon." Elijah clenched his jaw, heart thudding like a war drum, and he knew sleep wouldn't come easy that night. The next morning, Elijah saddled up his horse at first light, ignoring the stiffness in his back and the unease twisting in his gut. He was headed straight for Clara's sister's homestead. The journey was long, cutting through canyons and rocky paths, and as the sun climbed, so did his anxiety. The coffin's image burned in his mind. He didn't know what he'd find, but he feared the worst. Halfway through the journey, he passed the same spot where he met the stranger. The man was gone. No tracks. No scent. No sign he'd ever been there. Elijah stopped and looked around, tension coiled in his shoulders. The silence of the land screamed at him. Something wasn't right. When Elijah arrived at the homestead, he was met with an unexpected sight. Clara, alive and well, tending to her sister's garden. Relief washed over him so intensely that he nearly fell from his saddle. She looked up, surprised to see him, and rushed over. He embraced her tightly, trembling, not from the ride, but from the flood of fear and confusion now crashing over him. "What's wrong?" she asked, concerned. Elijah glanced back toward the hills, unsure how to explain it. "I bought a coffin," he said slowly, "and it had your name carved inside." Clara froze, the color draining from her face. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. Elijah explained everything. The strange man, the carved name, the eerie timing. Clara's sister listened quietly, her eyes darting with worry. "There's been talk in town," she finally said. "A drifter, always alone, dressed in black, giving away things tied to death, and every time he appears, someone nearby dies unexpectedly." Elijah felt a chill creep down his spine. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, this was something darker. Something evil. Clara gripped his hand tightly. "You need to destroy that thing," she said firmly. "Burn it, bury it. I don't care. Just don't bring it back here." Together, they rode back to the ranch, not speaking much along the way. The air between them was heavy, filled with dread and a silent prayer that the coffin would be gone. But when they returned, it was still there, exactly where he left it. Elijah dismounted and approached it cautiously. The name Clara May Carter was still etched in the wood, the letters unerringly perfect. He reached to open it, despite Clara begging him not to. The lid creaked, slowly lifting, and inside, nothing. Just darkness and the faint smell of pine. But the emptiness didn't calm him. It made it worse. It was waiting. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She sat up in bed while Elijah paced the living room. The coffin haunted their thoughts, its presence like a ghost creeping through the walls. Suddenly, their lantern flickered, then went out completely. In the darkness, they heard it, a creak. A soft, deliberate creak. Elijah ran outside, heart pounding, shotgun in hand. The coffin lid was open. Fully open. But no one had touched it. The air was still, not a breeze in sight. Clara screamed from inside. Elijah bolted back. She pointed at the floor. A muddy footprint, fresh, and leading away from their bedroom. They followed the footprints outside, the trail winding around the barn, through the corral, and vanishing into the night. Elijah's pulse raced. Was the drifter back? Had someone been inside their home while they slept? They found no one. Just silence. And that coffin, its lid wide open like an invitation. Elijah dragged it out to the field behind the barn. He poured kerosene over it, lit a match, and watched it burn. The flames danced violently, cracking and spitting sparks into the sky. But then, from within the blaze, a low groan echoed. Not wood, not wind, a voice. You weren't supposed to fight it. Clara pulled him back as the flames roared higher. The coffin cracked and exploded into ash. But as they stared at the smoldering remains, something metal glinted in the center. A coin, old and blackened, with a symbol Elijah didn't recognize. He picked it up, and the moment his fingers touched it, a vision flashed in his mind. A funeral, a casket lowering, Clara inside it, her eyes still open. He dropped the coin, gasping, sweat pouring down his face. Clara cried out, holding his shoulders. What did you see? He couldn't answer. He was shaking too hard. The next day, Elijah buried the coin deep beneath the ranch, marking the spot with nothing but a stone. He didn't speak much after that. Clara watched him, worried, as the days passed and his silence deepened. The ranch seemed to carry a weight now, as if it remembered what had happened. At night, Clara swore she could hear footsteps outside. Sometimes she saw shadows moving across the barn wall. But each time Elijah looked, there was nothing. Still, he kept his shotgun loaded and never let Clara sleep alone. Whatever the stranger had brought with that coffin, it hadn't left. Weeks later, a letter arrived. No name, no return address. Inside was a single line written in shaky ink, "Another box is coming." Elijah read it, crumpled it, and threw it in the fire. But the message burned into his mind. He and Clara stood at the edge of their property, holding hands, staring into the horizon. They didn't know when it would come or what it would look like. But they knew this: the fight wasn't over. Whatever curse they had brushed against was still moving, still watching. And when it returned, they would be ready, or it would bury them both. As days faded into weeks, Elijah grew more vigilant. Every creak in the floor, every flicker of the lantern, sent a jolt through his body. His ranch transformed from a peaceful haven into a fortress. The nights were restless, filled with whispered warnings and unseen eyes watching from the shadows. Yet, Elijah refused to leave. This land was his home, and no darkness, no stranger's curse, would claim it without a fight. Clara, too, stood strong beside him, though her smiles became rarer, replaced by a haunting fear that neither dared speak aloud. One evening, as twilight bled into night, Elijah found a note pinned to his door by a single black feather. The words were chillingly clear: "The coffin never sleeps." His hands trembled as he read, but his resolve hardened. This was no ordinary enemy, it was something old, something tied to death itself. He gathered his old friends from town, men who'd fought and bled alongside him, to prepare for what was coming. Together, they fortified the ranch, setting traps and clearing the perimeter. Elijah knew that the battle ahead was not just for his life, but for Clara's soul. That night, the wind carried a mournful howl, and from the shadows emerged the stranger in black. His eyes glinted with malice, and in his hands he carried another coffin, darker, heavier, and carved with symbols Elijah didn't recognize. The man's voice cut through the night air. "You cannot outrun what is destined. The wife belongs to the earth." Elijah raised his rifle, steady and sure, and the two men faced off in the cold moonlight. But this was no ordinary duel. The air crackled with unseen power as the stranger whispered curses that bent reality itself. Shots rang out, echoing across the barren plains. Elijah's bullets struck, but the stranger seemed untouched. With a cruel smile, he raised his hands, and the ground beneath Elijah's feet began to tremble. Dark roots burst forth, snaking toward the rancher like grasping hands. Clara screamed from the porch, rushing to Elijah's side. With desperate strength, he pulled her behind him, firing wildly to keep the stranger at bay. The night became a blur of chaos, gunfire, shadow, and raw, primal fear. Just when it seemed the darkness would consume them, a strange light filled the sky, bright, pure, and unwavering. The roots recoiled, the stranger faltered, and a figure appeared on the hilltop, cloaked in white robes that shimmered in the moonlight. It was the town preacher, carrying an ancient relic said to ward off evil spirits. His voice rang out clear and strong, chanting prayers that cut through the night like a blade. The stranger screamed in fury and vanished in a swirl of black smoke, leaving behind only the echo of his curse. In the quiet aftermath, Elijah and Clara embraced, their breaths ragged but hearts pounding with relief. The coffins were gone. The curse lifted, or so they hoped. The preacher warned them that such darkness rarely fades completely, that vigilance was their new way of life. Elijah nodded, knowing that this battle had changed him forever. He wasn't just a rancher now. He was a guardian, a protector against forces most men refused to believe. And for Clara, it was a rebirth, a chance to reclaim her life from the shadow of death. Years passed, and the McCoy ranch flourished once more. Neighbors spoke of Elijah's bravery and Clara's resilience. Their story became legend, a cautionary tale whispered around campfires and saloons across the frontier. But beneath the surface, Elijah remained watchful, his eyes always scanning the horizon for signs of the stranger's return. The scars he bore were more than physical. They were reminders of a darkness that almost stole everything he loved. And yet, he carried them proudly, a testament to survival. On quiet nights, Clara would sit by the fire, weaving tales of hope and redemption for their children, who never knew the full horror their parents endured. Elijah would watch her, his heart swelling with love and gratitude. The coffin was never spoken of again, but its shadow lingered, a silent guardian, warning them that even in peace, the past is never truly buried. The ranch, their home, stood as a beacon of resilience in a world too often ruled by fear. As the sun set on Elijah's life, he passed on the story to his grandchildren, not as a tale of fear, but as a lesson in courage, faith, and the power of love to confront even the darkest of curses. He taught them to honor the land, respect the spirits, and never forget that some battles are fought not with weapons alone, but with heart and soul. The coffin was more than wood and nails. It was a symbol of their fight, their sacrifice, and their unbreakable bond. If this story of Elijah McCoy moved you, please subscribe to the channel for more incredible true tales from the Old West. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if faced with a curse like this? Remember, these stories remind us that even in the harshest of times, hope can shine through the darkest shadows. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.